can't get any words. Podcasts don't last, giving you the real talk, no holding back. Can't get any worse, we'll make you see. There's always a silver lining. We'll set you free, so join the movement. Let's change the game with the Can't Get Any Worse podcast.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Can't Get Any Worse podcast. Welcome to the UFC 311 breakdown. Glad you could all join me for this. We're having another crack. Like I said, I want to make this a regular thing. And we're up to the next one. It's a new year, which means new UFC cards. And 311 is not one for the casuals. I was looking over the card, getting ready for this episode. And fuck me, you have to live and breathe the UFC for this one to be worth your $70. But we all know I'm a UFC deviant. I'm probably going to be forking out. This is what's going to happen. This is what happens every card. I'm going to watch the prelims and go, I'm not paying for the main card. Fuck that. I don't have the money. I don't have the time to sit down and watch it. I'll watch a couple of the prelims and go, oh my God, I'm hooked. I need to see who wins. But the thing with this card is the main event and the co-main are two of the biggest and best fights I've seen on paper in a long time. Whether or not they come out to play out that way is a whole nother story. We know in the past the UFC has set up these monster fights for us and both opponents just get in the cage and just dance around because they're both scared of each other, you know what I mean? But anyway, if you listen to Tuesday's episode, this is the second podcast for the day, so the man's going to need a break after this. It is exhausting. It all looks cushy and easy, but by the time you record it, that's the quick and easy part. Like I've spent the entire day editing and trying to upload that other episode and then trying to prepare for this one as well. So not complaining, definitely not complaining. Don't take it the wrong way, guys. Fucking love this. This is what I want to do. So just putting it out there. The man's exhausted. Let's have a little sip and then let's rip right into the UFC. Oh, yeah. That is some good water. But bit of Real Housewives of the UFC. I think if you're going to do a UFC episode and breaking news happens literally an hour or so before you hit record, you've got to address it. Otherwise, what's the point? You know what I mean? So breaking news as of Monday the 13th, Khabib Nurmagomedov, we're going to be talking about his cousin, I think it is, later in the episode, but he has been kicked off a plane over in America, which is pretty insane. When I saw the headline, I'm like, oh shit, who has tried to fight him now? We know he's got a bit of a temper. He's passed with Conor and things like that, but deep down, he genuinely seems like one of the nicest blokes that's ever stepped foot in the octagon. But as I was reading, like I said, it's only freshly broken. I don't have the full details. I've just read a couple of news resources and things like that. It would appear that an air hostess, that Khabib and his team have sat in the emergency exit row, right? Now, the air hostess has come and asked everyone that sits in that aisle the usual question, in case of an emergency, are you willing to help other passengers evacuate? Now, Khabib has pretty broken English. You can understand it. You can watch an interview with him and it's not that bad, but it's still pretty broken English. You know what I mean? Unless you're asking him if he's going to make you tap like chicken, you're probably not going to have a normal conversation with him. Anyway, whatever was said to this air hostess, she's gone and spoken to her manager or whatever. Now, the manager has come to kick off Khabib because he apparently was not willing to help people escape. Now, I'm going to put this out there, right? If I'm in any sort of danger in the world, right? So picture this. I'm on that plane. If I'm on that plane and the air hostess goes, by show of hands, who is willing to put their life in the hands of this 29-0 UFC legend sitting right here, my hand would go straight up. I would be the first one with my hand up. I would go, in case of emergency, I would let him save me. And then when we're on dry land, I would get on my knees and I would service the ex-UFC champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. I fucked up his last name, which, again, that's why I haven't done these UFC breakdowns for the longest time, because I can't pronounce shit properly. Anyway, it just blew my mind. Like, the dude is if there's two people in the world I'd want my life in the hands of, it's probably him and John Jones. I know I'm going to get home to my family if they're looking after me. But, I don't know what the go is. I think fucking... I was legit about to do the lamest thing and I stopped myself and I'm like, that is so lame. Do not ever say that. But now I feel like we're too deep in and I have to say it. I feel like the air hostess... was going to say, I'm sick of these Khabibs on this goddamn plane, like Samuel L. Jackson with snakes on a plane. Anyway, let's go back to wishing I never said that. And let's rip in to UFC 311. Now, there's a fight, again, more breaking news. A fight on this card in the prelims got pulled last night, and Johnny Walker versus Bogdan Guskov. Now, Bogdan I don't know a great deal about, right? But Johnny Walker, he was a young prospect who came into the UFC with a bang. Everyone thought he was going to be the next big thing. There was genuine chat that people thought he was going to be the one to dethrone John Jones. They thought, this is the kid on the come up. And I was on the hype train for a little bit. I'll put my hand up. I was on the hype train. And then he blew out his shoulder doing the worm in the octagon after he won once. And it was like a genie had granted him a wish. And they're like, we're going to make you UFC champion unless you do something stupid in front of a crowd. He goes and does the worm, dislocates his shoulder, and then it was like all the magic just left his body. He has legitimately not been the same since. Now, he also is very bad for pulling out of fights, just making up stupid excuses. And it would appear that last night, Australia time, if you're not listening to this in Australia, then whatever time it was for you, it would appear that he has pulled out with a, quote, bad injury. What's the bad injury, Johnny? What is the bad injury? Did you snap your shoulder in half again? Do you have a flu? What? Give us an answer. If Dana doesn't cut him after this, I don't know what is a sackable offense by the UFC, because fair enough, he brings in eyeballs, but he's also on a pretty heavy losing streak from what I know. So I don't know. That's that. He's off the card. Feel bad for his opponent, going all through the fight camp thinking he's fighting this week, and his opponent's just pulled out week of. Pretty poor effort, Johnny Walker. I'll tell you what, if I see you in the street, it's on, like at Donkey Kong. Just had another sip before we rip into the early prelims. Like I said, now, when I did the first breakdown for UFC 310, I copped a bit of backlash. I'll put my hand up. And I came in the following episode and I said, what fun would it be for anyone if I came in here and I backed the favourites in every fight? That'd be boring. I feel like it's my job to come in here, convince you why the underdog's going to win. Now, I've gone through this card and I will just preface my picks by saying it is very, very, very hard to back any underdogs on this card. It was almost as if the UFC sat down and they go, okay, we need a 100% safe fight card to kick off 2025. We need all the favourites to win to keep the storylines going for all of this. And I think that's going to play out when I give my picks. So if you're watching this in hopes that I'm going to tip some underdogs, don't get me wrong, there's a couple on there, and we'll get to it. But it's a pretty boring betting card, this one. I would keep my money in the pocket for the next fight night, which isn't even a pay-per-view. I think it's the Izzy Adesanya one. I don't even remember who he's fighting, but that card is actually stacked, more stacked than this card, for sure. So I probably should have done a breakdown for that one instead, but who knows. Let's rip in. First fight, kicking off the night. Again, pronunciation of these names is going to be horrendous. Do not come at me in the comments. I understand I'm just a dirty bogan from Australia who doesn't know how to pronounce Russian names. So we have Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. Clayton Carpenter, why can't we just have a good, simple name like that? Good on you, Clayton. Hats off to you. My apologies, though. I cannot tip you in this fight. Even though he's 8-0, which, that's impressive, but he's going up against a Russian who's 16-2, and he's also got a longer reach than him. So I cannot tip an American fighter although he's undefeated, you have to go the Russian with the longer reach. He is going to grab you, and he's just going to lay on you the entire fight, and he's going to put you in stupid positions that are going to make you wish you weren't alive. So for that reason, sorry, Clayton, I have to go Tagir at $1.37. Again, there's nothing in that. That is not worth a bet. Like putting $10 on to make 37 cents. No, wait, I fucked that up. Don't mind me. My brain is not with it today. If you saw my story trying to pronounce a word today, I've actually been practicing it. Monstrosity. There we go. I said it. So fuck you to everyone that's messaged me since then. Next fight, let's scroll up the card, make this a bit bigger on my big screen up here. We got Ricky Turcios versus Bernado Sopaj. Again, two pretty tricky names to pronounce, so hats off to me. This one, genuinely probably a flip of a coin, but I'm just going to go the younger dude. I think he's younger. Looking at him, he looks way younger, but I'm going to go Sopaj in this one, purely based on his looks, I suppose. He's 11-3. The other guy's 13-4, but I'm going to go Sopaj in this one at $1.32. On to the next one. This one is probably the first fight that I'm half interested in, okay? So we got Rinya Nakamura, who's an undefeated Japanese fighter, versus Muin Gafurov. Nakamura is 9-0, which is pretty impressive. But we've seen these Japanese fighters come over before with some pretty impressive records, and then they just seem to crumble in the UFC. So I would like to think that this is the exception of the rule. The other guy is 18-6, which I don't know. I don't know if anyone else looks at this, but when I go to like putting bets on and stuff, if you've got more than 5 losses and you're not like a huge name, I start to question things. I start to think that, I don't know. I don't want to say it. These guys have got more balls than I ever will. But clearly, I'm going to go Nakamura at $1.21. Again, what's the point of putting money on that? It's nothing. It's worth pennies. Now, let's get into the first and only girls fight, I believe, on this entire card. Girls fights have been a little bit off as of late. I know one was the main event last weekend, just gone. Hats off to Mackenzie Dern for definitely no other reason other than her fighting skills. It would definitely not be because of her looks or anything like that. That would be a disgusting way to look at women's fighters. But we've got Karol Rosa versus Ailin Perez. Now, this one, I've got no, what's the word? I've got no, I don't even remember the saying, like sauce in the game or something. That's not it. That's not it. Anyway, Karol is 18-6 and Perez is 11-2. Now, when I mentioned I've got a couple of underdogs coming up, here we go. I don't know if I should say for whatever reason, but Ailin Perez is the underdog in this one. She is paying $1.61. Now, I think that's worth a pretty decent dabble. She's 11-2. Going up against an 18-6 fighter. Like I mentioned before, once you get over that 5, I wonder, not necessarily if your heart's in it, but it's proven that you can be beaten, if that makes sense. So I reckon this young up-and-coming chick, she might get the better of it. That pick is definitely not based on who the better-looking fighter with the better tattoos would be. That would be a disgusting, masculine way to look at fights, and I definitely would not do that here. But let's go on to the headliner of the early prelims, if you will call it that. Now, this actually took me by surprise. This dude seems like a little tank, and I don't know where the fuck he's been hiding, but Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira. Now, at first glance, I was going to pick Diego all day. I've seen him fight a few times, and I'm sure I've seen Grant Dawson fight a few times as well, but for whatever reason, it just has not stuck in my head. So I'm going to pick Grant Dawson. His record is 22-2, which that's what I mean. Like that's a pretty good record to be just on the early prelims. So I don't know if this guy's done something bad to piss Dana off or whether he's relatively new to the UFC. I need to do more digging. To be fair, I was not as organised for this UFC breakdown as my previous one. I know I was pretty detailed on my last one with who they'd lost against and all that sort of stuff. But it's just a quick in and out one. You know what I mean? Like I said, second pot of the day. Let's get it done. But I'm going to go Grant Dawson at $1.30, which I understand. It's worth nothing. But looking at it on paper, it's hard to not pick him. You know what I mean? So you wait. You wait until every underdog on this card gets up and everyone comes at me for that. Oh, fucking, I thought you were the underdog king. Screw you guys. Anyway, the prelims. We've got Zac Reese versus Sedriques Dumas. Now, if you look at Sedriques Dumas and say he is not the third island boy, you're crazy. This dude is legitimately one of the island boys that has gone, you know what? Now that our fame's died down a little bit, I'm going to go and try the UFC. He's just, spitting image of the island boys. In saying that, Zac Reese gets this done. He's only paying $1.35. I so badly wanted to go Sedriques, but like they've both got good records. Like Zac Reese is 8-1 and Dumas is 10-2. So both young up and coming like fighters that could both have a future in the UFC, but purely based on what I've seen, Zac Reese gets this done. So again, not really worth a dabble. Like unless you want to throw a couple of these in a multi, that might be decent. Get the odds up, put like 2 in a multi, get the odds up to like $1.80-ish. That might be worth it. Then we move on to a heavyweight fight. 2 absolute fucking bangers. These 2 can be scary when they start teeing off. So we've got Jailton Almeida versus Serghei Spivac. If you had asked me 6 to 12 months ago, I would have gone Serghei all day. But in his last couple of fights, I just feel like he's dropped off a little bit, and now he's on that back end of that heavyweight. What's the word? Not lineup. I don't remember. It's not coming to me. Anyway, I'm going to go Almeida in this. He's also 21-3, which I don't remember his record being that good, but according to UFC.com, that's his record. So going to go him. He's paying $1.26, which not even worth a double, not even worth a bonus bet. So let's skip past that. This one is another one I'm actually pretty excited about, bantamweight fight. So we got Peyton Talbot versus Rainy Barcelos. Now, Peyton Talbot, he seems to be one of these, again, flying under the radar, just a young up-and-coming prospect. He's 9-0, so he's undefeated, and he's going up against a vet, I suppose you'd say. He's a little bit seasoned, Barcelos, but you have to go Peyton Talbot. And he's only paying $1.10. He's the biggest favourite on the entire card. But I don't know, like that's the risk with these young kids that are undefeated. Like it just takes, sometimes the experience can get over on them, if that makes sense. So I've got Talbot, $1.10. Let's see how that plays out. Skip past Johnny Walker because he's a little bitch. And then we get into Kevin Holland versus Reina de Ritter. Now, Kevin Holland was another one that I was big on the hype train. He came into the UFC with a couple of crazy knockouts and I was on board. I was all for it. And then he started to play it safe for a bit. Like he was in the cage and he was grappling with people and people had his back and he was like laughing and talking with them. Like you're in a cage fight, almost fighting for your life. Like it's not exactly fun time. Like beat the guy, then go and have fun in the dressing room out the back. So then he copped a couple of losses, I think he might have even got a draw potentially. Don't quote me on that. And it was just like the hype off him, like the scariness of him when he came in with those knockouts just seemed to disappear. So I fell off the train a little bit. And then, to be honest, again, I don't know too much about this Ritter guy. So looked into him a little bit. His record is 18-2, which again, it's a pretty good record in the UFC. Kevin Holland is now sitting at 26-12, which I did not know he had that many losses on his record. So purely based on that, I've got to go Ritter. Good news for you guys, he's paying just over $2. I think it was like $2.10 at the time of this recording. So odds could change closer to the fight. So I'll jump on that one. I might even put him... Yeah, fuck it. Let's put him... I got a thing at the end, but I'm going to put him in this part as well at $2. Just a bit of live editing for you guys. This one is another one I'm actually excited about. Beneil Dariush, versus Renato Moicano. So I love Beneil. He's getting pretty old now. Does it have his age here? No, doesn't have his age, but he's getting up there. He's got grey hair and shit. And it's just cool to watch him get in there and just sometimes get the better of these young kids. So he's sitting at 22-6 at the moment, and Moicano is 20-5. So that's not too bad. And Beneil's done it before. Like I've won a little bit of money on Beneil here and there. He's not, when he goes up against better people, I suppose you'd say, I steer clear. But on this kind of fight, I actually like his chances. This is the biggest underdog I've gone. So throw all your money at Beneil at $2.71. I'll probably throw a sneaky 10 on him because, like I said, he's pulled through for me in the past, and I think he's going to do it again today. Well, not today, but fucking this week. So jump on that one. Now, I didn't even say we're on the main card now. We're on the main card, ladies and gentlemen. So that's kicking off the main card. Then we have Yuri Pahacha versus Jamal Hill. Now, everyone I have heard is going Jamal Hill, but for whatever reason in my head, I want Yuri to win. And I don't know why. I think it's, again, Jamal Hill is just one of those guys that rubs me wrong. I don't know why. I just could never jump on the Jamal Hill train like a lot of other people were. And I genuinely don't know what it is. And as petty and stupid as this sounds, I think it's because he has 2 thumbs up tattooed on his chest. And that's just not for me. That's not what I need my UFC fighters to look like. Yuri is like a warrior that trains in the forest with a little ponytail on his head. He's a legit like samurai. He thinks he's a samurai. So Jamal's record is 12-2, which it's not too bad. Yuri's is 30-5. So he's right on that borderline I was saying, where he's got 5 losses now. And he also, I'm pretty sure he's coming off the back of a loss from memory. But I don't know. Part of me wants to go Yuri, but the amount of people saying Jamal. So on this one, I've gone the classic fight not to go the distance. I don't have odds for that yet on Sportsbet. So whenever that comes out, it's probably going to be fuck all again, like $1.30, because I would be genuinely surprised if that fight goes the distance. But there's a little dabble for you. Again, throw it in a multi if you want. Now we get on to the co-main and the main event. Now, these are the 2 fights that, if this was just the card, this is worth your $70 alone. Everything before this was just a bit of a bonus for you guys. So, Merab Davashvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. What is all that banging outside? I think that's actually thunder. Anyway, Umar he seems to be this up-and-coming beast. He is obviously the cousin of Khabib that we spoke about earlier in the podcast. And he's currently undefeated. He's sitting at 18-0. The argument against him is he hasn't really come up against any huge names or anyone that will give him much of a competition to date. You know what I mean? He's more or less grounded out with these mid-level names and made it this far on the back of his last name. The UFC wants another Nurmagomedov to be a champion. It just writes itself, you know what I mean? It's a story at the end of the day that the UFC is trying to paint. Now, I was all aboard the Merab train, and that is heavily because he was a student of Matt Serra. If you're an old school UFC person, you'll know who Matt Serra is. He also runs the UFC podcast now, UFC Unfiltered, I think it is. So yeah, Merab is one of his students, if you want to call it that. So I was stoked when he finally got the championship. It was another champion under Matt Serra and Ray Longo. And now that he's got the championship, I just it doesn't faze me if he keeps it or not. Part of me wants Umar to, well, no, that's my tip. I've got Umar to win because, I don't know, I think it's a good story that Khabib is now, he's retired at 29-0, an undefeated champion. He was legit the perfect image of a champion that you could have. He didn't have any controversy. He just went in there. He destroyed every opponent he could. And then he decided, once his dad died, he goes, nah, I've promised my mum, that's it. He has been thrown millions upon millions of dollars to come back for a comeback fight just to make it 30-0. And he's gone, nah, I've promised my mum. I've gone out. I'm rich. I've kept all my senses. I've got no damage from fighting. What's the point of coming back? Just for you guys to get entertainment. So full credit to him. Like most of the time you see these guys, they either retire too late or they make the decision to retire early and then they get thrown all this money, come back, get knocked out. Much like we saw Mike Tyson a few weeks ago. But anyway, this isn't about Khabib. This is about Umar. So because of that, I'm going Umar, $1.33, which A, is fuck all to bet on, and B, actually really surprised me that he is $1.33 up against the UFC champion, the bantamweight champion. In saying that, it's going to be a crazy grappling match. Again, this is the other issue. Sometimes when you have two awesome grapplers go up against each other, it just turns into a pretty shitty kickboxing match. We spoke about this on the last UFC breakdown with, I forget who it was. Crone Gracie and Bryce Mitchell. So it could turn into a shitty kickboxing match, but I genuinely think these two are going to want to go in there, grind it out for 5 rounds and just genuinely see who's the better fighter. So I'm going Umar on that one. Then the main event, we got Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan, number 2. They've fought in the past. Islam's record is 26-1, which nuts. Tsarukyan's isn't too bad either, 22-3. Now, there's nothing to really break down. Makhachev gets the win. It's pretty fucking easy. So Makhachev at $1.25. He's pound for pound rated best fighter in UFC at the moment. Again, I know there's a lot of controversy around that, but he is as boring as his fights can be sometimes, he is genuinely a fucking weapon. I would be so surprised if Tsarukyan somehow got the win. And stranger things have happened, you know what I mean? He could come and get it done. Who knows? But I cannot see it getting done. So I've got to go Islam. So that brings my guaranteed tips for UFC 311 to Umar Nurmagomedov at $1.33, Islam Makhachev at $1.24, and then purely because they're paying fuck all, I'm going to throw Beneil Dariush in there at $2.71. That'll pump the value up of that multi majorly. And if you're feeling extra froggy, throw Ritter in there at $2. Those last two, they're a flip of the coin. Don't fucking come at me like you did last UFC breakdown. They're just to try and win you guys some money. So if you don't have any money to gamble responsibly, I'm not sponsored by any betting agencies, so I technically don't need to say this, but a couple of people after the last breakdown messaged me and they're like, wow, your picks made so much sense. I'm going to throw some money on them, and I got so scared. So I've tried to avoid the detailed breakdown, again, because I've bet on all the favourites basically on this card. So I've got nothing to back up why I'm backing the underdog. The next UFC breakdown, there'll be underdogs galore. The UFC won't be playing it as safe, that card. So stay tuned for that one. I hope you guys have enjoyed another UFC breakdown. This is only the second one, so we're only going to get bigger and better from here. I'll just plug my dates again at the end of this one because I do it at the end of every podcast. Friday the 17th, I'll be at Matic Brewing at Ashmore. Saturday the 18th, I'll be at Home of the Arts at Southport. Sunday the 19th, I'll be at Distillery Road Market at Eagleby. And February 7th, I'll be at the Orion Hotel. That one is sold out now, so unfortunately, you won't be able to get tickets. I should have mentioned, those are all stand-up dates. I'm not like a cage fighter or anything. I'm a shitty stand-up comedian from Brisbane, Australia. So if you want to come check me out, come to one of those shows. Send through any submissions or ideas you have for this sort of show to Can't Get Any Worse Podcast on Instagram or Can't Get Any Worse Pod at gmail.com. And enjoy the UFC. Hopefully I pick some picks for you guys. And if I don't talk to you before the next breakdown, I will see you later.
Can't get any worse, we'll make you see. It's always